So if you have like a new leader, what kind of advice do you want to give them so they can develop like a strong feedback culture early in their career?
You got to box it in a little bit and give leaders the skills so you can scale that.
Reverse engineer it, coach them up on how to be coachable.
Help me understand how you want to be recognized. The best leaders will do things above and beyond. You definitely have to have processes to help companies grow and scale at no matter the size around this very kind of sensitive topic. But the best leaders will do things above and beyond, and they will do them in simple ways that the team members don't even know that that's what they're doing. It truly impacted me as a leader. And it's like, okay, she cares enough about me to say that, and she cares about the success of my team. And hopefully selfishly because it impacts her team. But best feedback I think I have ever received.
Giving that positive feedback. And I guess in a lot of ways, he did exactly what Shane said about he let me know the actions I was taking and the value it was adding. And we finished that conversation with him basically saying, Damien, the results will come.
Recognition for people takes on many different forms.
You're listening to Leadership Manufacturing Podcast. I'm your host, Sanne Linding. I'm a strategic leader with over 20 years of experience in B2B marketing, product development, and team empowerment. I'm passionate about sharing insights. I know you know that. And I'm sharing tools to help professionals enhance their leadership skills. And in each episode, we discuss relevant topics for leaders like you, offering practical strategies and valuable insights. And it's all to help you refine your leadership style and drive success in your role. I interview professionals within the manufacturing industry, the distribution sector, and they all share their knowledge around leadership. So make sure to follow us, like and subscribe, and please check out our YouTube channel as well. Welcome back to Leadership Manufacturing Podcast. I'm thrilled because this is a continuous of a discussion that was from episode 112, named How to Create a Feedback Culture That Drives Team Growth. So if you didn't listen to it, go back, listen to that, and then continue on this one. So this episode, I'm joined again by two remarkable leaders, Damien Croft, General Manager at Norcom, and Shane Zutz. He's the Vice President of Human Resources at DigiKey. And we're going to talk about performance review. Are they best conducted annually, quarterly, or more frequently basis? And we're also going to unlock some secrets to effective feedback that promotes organization excellence. Enjoy the episode. I want to talk about, is it annual performance review? Is it quarterly? Is it monthly? What works, what doesn't work?
This is interesting because I don't know obviously what Shane's going to say on this, but I imagine given I'm working for a privately held organization versus Shane is still privately held, but on a much different scale. So Shane's view on this may be a little different from mine. We do have annual reviews as an organization and a business where we formalize certain feedback and achievements, goals, all that good stuff. But for me, this subject of feedback is a day in, day out. It's as it occurs. As I said earlier, not letting things fester and kind of take on a life of their own. And so we will get together kind of ad hoc because there's a certain issue. We do always also have a regular cadence of meetings, whether it's around leadership or accountability or reviewing our goals and objectives as teams and groups within the organization. And then there's a monthly meeting as a whole organization that we do as well. But for me, it's a day in, day out ongoing process. Now, I understand from Shane's perspective, working for a multi-billion-dollar organization with 5,000 employees, that's a little more challenging. But I'm fortunate in my situation that we're able to manage that, and it's been successful. It allows us to get ahead of things and keep focused on adding value to the business and keep moving forward.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those thoughts. I mean, and it's really interesting. So DigiKey, we're in our 53rd or 54th year of existence. And our first formal performance review cycle is happening. It happened with this 2024 year. We're just rolling it out. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean DigiKey didn't do anything with feedback and, over that course of time, but more formally, And one of the things that we've really encouraged leaders, this is what the company is going to provide for you to help put, because when you do have a number of people, team members like we do, like Damien said, you gotta box it in a little bit and give leaders the skills so you can scale that. But one of the nice parts about our immaturity in that is we can really take the lens of, we're not going to make it bureaucratic. We want to make it a little more living. And a lot of companies, it is, and that's why HR gets a bad name, right? It's like, no, you just handed this encyclopedia of how to do performance management, and I have to have them all done in 3 weeks, and I can't worry about my forecasted numbers for 2025 because you got me buried here. And I'm not suggesting any of that's wrong. So whoever listens, they don't have to agree with that. You just need to find balance in that. And so for us, we do it on an annual basis. But as I was thinking about this, and I actually put a few notes on a document to the side, anyone who's in leadership who strives to have impact on people and success in their business, and whether that involves moving up or a different title or higher compensation is a moot point. But most companies provide some sort of structure. But if you, as a leader, are only engaging in that process, and it's exactly what Damien just said, during those times or frame, you're just not going to be as successful, and it really will show up in your team. So at DigiKey, we have people that use the Teams function during their meetings, and they'll put almost a net promoter score type question in their team meetings, and then they'll say, "Okay, let's talk about that." That is such a simple way to create the environment, going all the way to the beginning of this conversation: culture, trust, transparency, vulnerability. It also, if you're smart as a leader and you're strategic and intentional, you can pull themes from your performance management cycle and some of the things that you've done with people and kind of pull out of there without drawing it to anyone specifically, but something you may see across your team. So very quickly, you definitely have to have processes to help companies grow and scale at no matter the size around this very kind of sensitive topic. But the best leaders will do things above and beyond, and they will do them in simple ways that the team members don't even know that that's what they're doing, because it just becomes a part of the rhythm of work. And if you keep your eyes open across your company, and you will know the leaders that do these things very naturally, and even individual contributors. You don't have to be in leadership to do this. There are great individual contributors that lean into, and so I get excited about that, because where I get most excited in our company is when I see leaders who embrace what we're doing as a company and say thank you for that, but I feel the need to do more. And those are the people that are shining. Those are the teams that are winning, and it's so easy to see, and that's kind of fun for me.
Okay. Last question here I have. So it's like giving it advice, right? Because this is our little mentoring here. So if you have like a new leader, what kind of advice do you want to give them so they can develop like a strong feedback culture early in their careers?
That's a great question. I guess to jump in and bear with me on this one. One of the things we've not touched on, we've been very focused on obviously the leader's perspective on feedback. When I first had the opportunity to meet with Shane and we started engaging, we exchanged some books, leadership books. It was clear we both enjoyed leadership and enjoyed reading about it. And the book that Shane sent me was called Coachability. And there's always such a focus on, as a leader, how you give feedback, the preparation, the context, all the things we've discussed here today. If I were looking at a new employee, I would be tempted to teach them what it means to be coachable, and then for them to teach their team members that. Because if your team members are able to take responsibility for the feedback that they receive, and they're able to self-reflect, like we spoke about, we need to as leaders, that gives you a lot of runway to make mistakes and to figure it out and do everything else. So I think that's an important part of it. And I would highly recommend that book, Coachability. It kind of maps out how we can become more coachable as individuals, and gives some very practical advice around that. And we can't go into it here from a time viewpoint. But yeah, I would be kind of reverse engineer it, coach them up on how to be coachable, and have them teach their teams there. And that just sets them up for success. And like I said, some of the other skills you can continue to work with them on to develop. I think when we started this discussion, I used the phrase lead with intent.
Yeah.
And you're kind of doing that by starting with the coachability aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so I would be tempted to, I guess, do things a little bit backwards in that regard. And that gives them the scope to be successful with it, and kind of sets that groundwork for the team. And number one, they know they're going to get feedback because I'm being told I need to be coachable, so they're prepared for that.
Yeah.
And obviously,
that's a good setup as well, right? Or environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right. The reverse engineer, and then just to add to that, because I can't say it any better than that. Then as people get a little more comfortable, what I've done, so say you take that new team member or leader, and like Damien said, hey, we're setting the expectation. We want you to be coachable, malleable, adaptable, all the things, right?
Yeah.
But as you get closer with that individual and the relationship grows, the other thing that I've done is I've really just been super open with people and say, help me understand how you want to be recognized and how do you want to receive feedback? Because I think at times people are so afraid to have a conversation. It's okay to say, I want to be recognized because someday I want to have a wider scope of responsibility, and with that would come a different title and potentially higher compensation. And sometimes we're like, "Oh, we can't worry about compensation. That means you're selfish." That's a bunch of baloney. Okay, everybody has things that motivate them, and recognition for people takes on many different forms. And so I feel like being additive to what Damien said, when the relationship grows, how do you want to be recognized and how do you want to receive feedback? It just takes it another step further. And because you can't get recognized if you don't get feedback, right? So so that's the only thing that I would add there. And then Damien, noted that book Coachability, and one of the things that studies show, the higher level that you take on in a company, and the older that you get, and I get to unfortunately maybe fit both of those bills at the moment, your coachability actually goes down. It is an absolute fact. And so that's why, and Santa, again, kudos to doing stuff like this, or me prepping for this call and checking in with Damien. It keeps you sharp. So hopefully I'm at least flattening the curve, or, I doubt that I'm growing the curve, but at least I'm not going downward. But that's really real. And that's where you see leaders farther along in their careers get themselves in trouble, and the world passes them by. And I just want to encourage leaders to what Damien says, is embrace that ability to receive feedback as well, because I think people remember a lot in their careers, but they most specifically remember the beginning and the end. And you want to go out in a way that is, hey, we left some legacy here at DigiKey and we were growing. And I know there's 10 things I hope the person that comes in behind me tomorrow does different. But that's where I think all this rolls into. If you have that passion as a leader around feedback for yourself, you're going to drive it through your team, and it's going to become supernatural. And I don't know, there's a lot of fulfillment on winning at the top and the bottom line. This will drive even more engagement for you in combination with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I actually have one more question. I lied. I can see it because I'm looking at my notes. No, because I want to get a little bit more personal. So for each of you, it's like, if you could share like one piece of advice you have received as a feedback that actually have shaped, your leadership approach. What have changed or made you a better person?
I can jump in on this one because I use this example when I work with leaders at DigiKey in different contexts. So Linda Johnson's our EVP of operations at DigiKey, involved in leadership and women electronics, etc. She is so near and dear to my heart for a multitude of reasons. And you remember Damien gave this example that sometimes you do ad hoc feedback as a team and you just kind of go around the table and things like that. So we did that as an executive team. And in my own words, what I heard from Linda is, hey, Shane, we love you, but we need you to put your head down a little bit more in human resources because there are some things that need to get fixed. So while we embrace the fact that you understand our business well and you're adding impact, remember there are things in your area that need a little bit more of attention. And it
Yeah.
wasn't like I was trying to run from HR. That wasn't the point. I just have a helpful nature, which sometimes is not helpful. And that's what Linda told me. And I'm going to tell you, I took that to heart. And
Yeah.
I feel like my team is performing at a really high level. They're getting pulled into the business. We're not pushing into the business. But it was just in the way she said it, in her very caring, but kind of a tough, empathetic manner, like, get
Yeah.
going there, dude.
Yeah.
I will remember it forever. I get goosebumps saying that right now, because it truly impacted me as a leader. And it's like, okay, she cares enough about me to say that, and she cares about the success of my team, and
Yeah.
hopefully selfishly because it impacts her team. But best feedback I think I have ever received.
Nice. Love it.
That's awesome. It's kind of funny as you were talking there, Shane. I'm thinking of an idea, and I'm glad that you jumped in there because I needed a second to think
Time.
through that. But the example that comes to mind is almost the opposite of that kind of tough, direct, but empathetic approach. I go back to early on in my career. I was still in the UK, and I had just been given responsibility over a business unit. So I'm a very young, really don't have a clue what I'm doing. Kind of, you're going off gut instinct and enthusiasm and hoping for the best, right? And I remember about 6 months into that journey, I was working really hard, putting a lot of time and effort in all the areas I felt that we needed it, but the results weren't showing. You know, it wasn't the P&L wasn't showing the efforts we're putting in. And I reached out to somebody who actually was the general manager at Norcom, John McGowan, at the time. And obviously, I ended up coming and working for him before taking on this role. So he became very much a mentor to me. But I remember reaching out and just be like, John, what am I doing wrong? Like, I need feedback. I'm in a silo here. I don't know what else I need to do to help this business be successful. And like a good leader, he listened and he asked lots of questions to kind of understand what I had been working on, what I was doing. And what he shared with me was really, really simple, but completely changed my mindset on things. And he just turned around and he's like, Damien, you're doing all the right things. I encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. And just that simple reassurance. And it goes back to my comment earlier about giving that positive feedback. And I guess in a lot of ways, he did exactly what Shane said about he let me know the actions I was taking and the value it was adding. And we finished that conversation with him basically saying, Damien, the results will come. Just keep doing the right things and the results will come. And for me, you know, I learned the importance of giving positive feedback. I learned the importance of consistency. And I learned the importance of not threatening and worrying over results. Focus on your actions. And if you know your actions are doing the right things and are adding value, the results will come. You know, we go through market cycles and there's lots of things impacting our business. And that can be disheartening. But when we remain optimistic and focus on doing the right things. I guess my example, it was very simple, but it was just a pat on the back saying, you're doing a great job. I have confidence that the results are going to come. And that for me meant the world. And I took a lot of different lessons from that. So that was just one example that came to mind in that.
Yeah. So I'm already like one takeaway, right? Is like to everybody who's listening, just once a week, right? Say something positive, give that positive feedback to somebody, if it's in your team or not your team, because it's going to grow. It's going to show so much more, right? On the other side.
Yeah, that feedback that you received, Damien, and even the feedback I received from Linda was really confidence building. She wasn't saying, "Hey, you're doing all these things." Number one, she was extending trust, the fact that I could go build, go take care of those things that I needed to, and recognizing maybe some outward value too. But you're right. Sometimes it's just it's having them lean into their strengths, and I don't. Santa, that's the part about feedback you have to be careful of, is that one leadership model that I followed is that, for people to be successful, it's what's their passion, what's their skills, and what's needed in the business. And you kind of, and I think sometimes if you don't do what happened with Damien from George, I think you said was his name, people will tend to focus too much on their weaknesses. And I listened to a podcast the other day from John Maxwell. It was kind of a recap of 2024. And he said, listen, why do you have people focusing on their behavior or their skill that's a 3 and they can work their tail off and they're going to get it to a 4? Who cares? Go work on your 7 and your 8. He's, in his humble words on how he speaks, but it really leans into the things that Damien said for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I have like one fun question I want to ask, Shane. Do you have any meetings on Fridays? Because does anyone want to have a meeting with HR on a Friday afternoon?
I actually have a schedule that is booked all day on Fridays. Quite often I have meetings on Fridays. Yeah, it's not an off day for sure.
Okay.
Sometimes that's with the world today that's very virtual in nature. Sometimes those are the only free opportunities is on Fridays. Oh, okay. But one of the things I'm trying to do in my leadership is do a better job of being prepared for Monday and Tuesday on Friday and not letting that drag so deep into the weekend. Yeah. Or getting up Saturday morning and getting it done and then just put it over there until Monday. So
yeah. I know we're wrapping up here, but I just had one additional thought, which is completely unrelated to much of what we've discussed, but I'll throw it out there. Yeah. All this discussion we've had has been focused on, I guess, an individual level, a leader giving feedback to a team member or an employee. One thing that I take from a relationship that we have with DigiKey, for example, and some of our other distribution partners, the things we've talked about here can apply at the organizational level. And we recently, just December, had a review meeting with some of the team at DigiKey. There was some very direct feedback given both ways and improvement opportunities on what we can do in our partnership to drive growth and have greater success than we have now. And I tell you, it's one of the most productive distributor manufacturer meetings that I've been involved in. Some significant action items on both sides of the table that allows us to really go forward. And we're going to have a great year this year with DigiKey as a result of that meeting. And again, everything we've spoke about here, the foundation, the trust, the relationship, the way that we packaged and approached the feedback to each other, it all applies at the organizational level and the partnerships that we have with suppliers, with customers, with distributors, with manufacturers, reps. So, please give that some thought as leaders as far as how you can apply some of this stuff to help the business and your external partnerships that you have as well.
Yeah. What you're saying, you don't have to reinvent, right? Mm-hmm. Use the structure or use the learnings that actually is working within your organization. And use that when you go to everybody, with your partners that you work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Damien, I'll use that feedback because I'll be honest with you, part of where we do get criticized as a distributor is, and maybe it's this Minnesota nice thing that, everything is, so using more data and being more prepared for those meetings. It's not like people were unprepared, but we'd lean so hard on the relational side, which that's great, but how do we give like a company like yours the data that the impact of the work that we're having, and then you can be reflective on that. So when you come to those meetings, it's actually moving things ahead. And that's where we've tried to. We're not there yet. I had multiple instances just in the last couple of weeks where some things that we talked about with suppliers, that the holiday they were kind of sitting there on the oven and came forward, and it's like some fairly significant gaps. And so we definitely have to do a better job of that. But I agree with you on that. That's probably not taken into consideration, but the feedback stuff and all the skills, how many of us are working with just a tremendous amount of vendor partners and that ability to flex up and down as you work with multiple distributors in your case as an example and partners, and it's you have to be able to do that. That's a really excellent point that these things, they flex across.
Yeah, I would recommend you go talk to the Interconnect leadership team because they did a great job, the delivery of the feedback. Sometimes in business, particularly in partnerships, we have a tendency to gloss over some of the improvement opportunities. Like, look at these metrics that are doing great.
Yeah,
let's focus on them. It was a very balanced meeting, and we had some very open discussions on both sides of where there's gaps in the partnership, and sharing data, diving into the data as a team, as a collective, so you get both perspectives of it, from a manufacturer and distributor. they really did a great job of that. So yeah, go
Awesome.
speak with the team.
Nice.
I'll do that. I will pass
that.
it along.
Yeah, that would be huge for sure.
Yeah. So thank you so much. So thank you, Shane. Thank you, Damien. I think this was amazing what we went through. It even, I think, Damien, you like proposed like a new episode here as well, right? How do we get back to partnerships?
Yeah.
I'll make that as my note. But just some of my takeaways is, bring the value, right? And also like reverse engineering it. And I love it because I'm an engineer. So my brain is like, okay, how do we do it this way, and then actually make it better? So that's just how I love it. And just remember to recognize anybody within your team or within your organization if they're doing something great. Speak up and say it, and don't just stand in that corner and you observe it, right? But actually share it and say it. I think that is so impactful. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the time for sure. Sana, the book that I gave Damien is pretty good. But the book that he shared with me, what's the first word? Hospitality. What's the first one? Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you read that book, Sana? It's
I need to join your book club.
It was firing around DigiKey, and then we had this guy come and do some leadership stuff, and he brought it up, and it's an amazing book. It's off the charts. It's really one of my favorite reads I've had in the last couple of years, and it'll probably come back up for me, Damien. And I mean that. I'm not just handing that out. That book to me was because it's really about excellence, and I think sometimes as leaders, you say, "Wow, if we can get 80% of that." No, for us right now, I'll use a very clear example. Tariff recovery is a big deal for us. Our profit leak on tariff recovery it's not good. In fact, I don't know that it's under my purview, but Dave's like, I want to know how that's going to happen. And we just, so we're working through that. But rather than saying, hey, we want to recoup 80% of that, no, we're going to say we want to recoup every dollar of tariff recovery, knowing we probably won't, but that's where we need to start. And that's my biggest thing in that book is I think everybody naturally, you kind of lay it up a little bit short instead of, shooting for complete excellence and driving that mindset. And I think it drives different creativity. And so honestly, it was it's one of my favorite books.
Nice.
Yeah, it's on my reread list. Every 12 months,
absolutely, 100%.
There's so much gold in there. And obviously, depending on your circumstance as a leader and the challenges you're facing, you'll take different things. So I think 2 months ago, I read it for the third time, and it's one of my favorites as well, Shane. It's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I just want to loop it here, right? So even with feedback, you need reflection. Just listening or reading a book for the second time or third time is giving you another perspective on that book, right? It's like that reflection. So it's just, when you have the good books, it's good to go back to them. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Leadership in Manufacturing podcast. I love that you're listening. Please find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, and be sure to subscribe and rate us. Also, follow our LinkedIn page and Instagram, and check out leadershipinmanufacturing.com for previous episodes, blog posts, and our newsletter. So let's continue this journey together to become better leaders in the electronics industry. Remember, stay curious, keep learning. See you next time.